All right. You ready?
We're live.
Okay. The meeting for May 18th, 2021 for the Pulaski County Board of Election Commissioners is called to order. We do have a quorum. Ms. Bailey McKinnon, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All would like to stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bailey. All right. Commissioner Price and Commissioner Scott, have you had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from April 28th?
Yes, I have.
Yes, I have.
Did you have any changes, edits, additions, subtractions? Thank you.
None for me.
I don't see you.
All right. I know I'm quiet, so. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 28th, 2021?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
The meeting minutes have been adopted and approved for April 28th, 2021. All right. Sean, if you'll just lead us in our business.
Sure, be happy to. So the first item on the agenda is the canvass of the absentee ballots. Chairwoman Starr, you have a roster in front of you. That just gives a list of who all absentee ballots were sent to. That's a report that's required that the clerk send over. So we do have that. I apologize, I don't have the total number they sent out in my mind, but there were only 10 that were returned and accepted by the county clerk. Of those, 7 were canvassed today and were found to be acceptable to be tabulated by our canvassers. 3 are by Chairwoman Starr, and those were just determined to be irregular for a variety of reasons. One doesn't have the required materials, and I think 2 of them have 10 addresses that differ in some way. So we just wanted to bring them to the commission so that you all can apply Arkansas law to those and determine how they should be dealt with. And there's 116 outstanding UACAVAs that can still come in by, within the next 10 days.
Is it 116 or 114?
There's 116 UACAVAs, according to the latest information I have. It's still outstanding.
And on the reviews of the for the canvassing, how many levels of reviews have been done?
Just one.
So there was only reviews done by the absentee election officials, not from the staff.
No staff is reviewed. That's left to the commission.
Okay. The process has always been to have 2 levels of reviews before it comes to the commission. So since the other review has not been done, what is the will of the board? Since we did not have 2 levels of review.
For these 3?
There's been not 2 levels of review, correct?
It's not for the other ones as well?
Excuse me?
Not for the other 7 that were accepted?
Oh, I mean, the other 7 when canvassed were accepted because they met all the legal requirements.
So I say we review the 3, each one of us, and then the 3 of us come together with a decision and then sign up on those decisions. Is that the will of the board?
I agree.
Okay. I'm going
Not for each of us.
to pass it to my right and let you look at the 3,
Okay.
and then go for it. Sean, do you know if she has an updated the county clerk has an updated absentee roster? Because this one has 114.
That was what was sent over.
This morning?
Yeah, it was sent over this morning, and then I got an email late this afternoon at 5:10. It said there were no changes, so this morning's files are still applicable.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Scott, about the report? Commissioner Scott's our newest commissioner. I just want to make sure if any
Is this showing
questions.
the total of all of the absentee eligible voters? Is that what
It shows, the report gives the information on how the information was sent, what was rejected, and a reason of rejection or not rejection. So for example, there was 2 that were rejected because they could not be delivered. And it gives a reason for the request, such as unavoidably absent or you apologize.
Thank you, sir.
has not been open.
It was not.
I need somebody to open an envelope to check the material. Please, thank you. Thank you.
Notice it says two rejected, and it says we have another that, I guess it was, thought it was three were rejected.
The two rejected are meaning that they were rejected before they even
Okay,
came this way.
okay.
Yeah, the 10 that were received are the 7 plus 3. So the 7 that were already approved and the 3 that are sitting here.
Never a reverse statement. I didn't think so. Thank you for opening it.
No problem. I'm just gonna double check. Sometimes they come in there. You know, it could be, not it's meant to be white because they're copies. You can't see it. Okay, before I hand this to you, I'm gonna make a statement because we do things a little differently, and by differently, I mean we err on the side of the voter. We look at the addresses to see if there's a comparison. As long as there is a comparison of addresses on each, the voter statement and the application, it does not have to be the same address as in. Sometimes the worker may mark it as not counted because they're looking at specifically the type of address it is. We're looking at, is there an address that compares 1 to 1? So let's say that they put one type of address in one box and a different type of address in another box, and it's not in the right box. Do you see what I'm saying? It's going to make more sense to you when you look at this document. We don't mark that as not going to count because we're not going to penalize them for not being in the right box. We're simply looking, is there an address that compares, because the law simply says a comparable address. That's why we're going to we have a new law that's coming into effect that's going to say uniform voter statement. We don't have these issues anymore. So when you're looking at this, just simply looking for one address that compares on each one. That makes sense. Goodness gracious. Would you like to see that?
Oh, thank you.
I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
have one. Okay.
Okay, cool. I don't know how people wear glasses with a mask at the same time. I can't do it
It's
for even a
hard.
second. You can't see. It fogs up really fast.
And it's not so easy to do when you have a mask.
I know, I'm so sorry. I have a quiet voice.
You had no way of knowing unless somebody said something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I am fully vaccinated.
We are too.
Same here.
Is,
I have the same problem.
at the state government, we got to remove our masks as of yesterday, so it's pretty weird. It's been kind of nice. And on those UACABA voters, which the UACABA is, of course, our overseas and our military voters, the materials that they get put back in there are not going to be the color-coded materials because they're printing off those materials sometimes so they could be, like a white copy. So sometimes just looking at the inner envelope and looking for maybe a colored copy is not going to be sufficient. It could be blended in with the ballot. Take the clip Okay, so I'm gonna give my assessment and if I can jump in with your assessment and we'll discuss the assessment of each of us and come to an agreement. So let's put my glasses back on. So for the one with the voter statement missing, I see that as a rejection because there is no voter statement. For the other two that state those are not comparable addresses, I disagree with those assertions because I think those were comparable addresses on both of those. There was a comparable address, while they may have been different places, and understand why the worker saw it that way because they're looking at the out-of-state address. There still were comparable addresses. So to me, in my personal of these, I would count two and reject one.
I agree.
That was my assessment of it as well.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the two absentee ballots that have the mismatched addresses due to the fact that there was a comparable address, which was just their out-of-state address, rather than their address of the residence within the district. So we'll accept those two, and then we will reject the absentee ballot that is missing the voter state. Did I get everything?
Yes, I was just finding a place for us to sign on here.
And that's why we need a better voter statement that says specifically list your address within the district. If you just say address, people are going to think the current address.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to do with the absentees at this time?
No. That pretty much completes the absentee canvass.
Would you like to run another unofficial result to include the?
I mean, we can with the two that are being included.
Sure.
Sure. Then I'll take the other one and keep it in the election file. So I'll go run these and we'll be right
There's
back.
a portion.
Thank you. Yeah, do you need the UFOBA report? Or?
I don't, that's for y'all.
Thank you. This is yours. Maybe I'll give it 0.7%.
That's pretty sad.
And just a comment, y'all made Josh, or Commissioner Price, you made a motion, but it was not voted on.
I'm sorry. Can we do that again?
Yes, I move to accept the two absentee ballots that use their current address instead of the address of their residence within the district, because the addresses they compare to what was listed on the application. And I move to reject the absentee ballot that was missing the voter state.
For the
Oh, sorry. For the May 18, 2021 Jacksonville School Board election.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Sean.
If I can, just on the next item, it will probably be about 30 more minutes before we have results from the field. We have those being brought in
Sure.
right now.
We can go ahead and go to other business. Or under new business, not other business. So the next item up for business is approval of nepotism and political diversity policy. So we made some changes. Commissioner Scott, did you have any changes to make to this policy?
Just looking, I mean, other than the very last section,
Okay.
I don't know, I think that's redundant, given the law.
The Freedom of Information Act section?
Yeah, I think that we could actually remove that, and might be something that we would like to do. It's not, I don't see how it's required. Of course, I think I am a licensed attorney, and I need to make a point. We've talked about things before, about me looking at things, and that's my personal view, my view of the law. And I'm not acting as the lawyer for the board, but that is my view of it, and I don't see why we're going.
Any other
I didn't have any other
changes?
revisions that I saw.
Okay. We typically don't have public comment to the end, but I do know there's people here that obviously want to speak, so definitely welcome some questions or
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
questions from the audience.
I'd like to make some comment.
Absolutely.
Can I stay seated?
Yeah, if you don't mind telling me your name.
No, I'm going to do that.
Great.
Can I take this off?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I've written these down so they're made more concise. So, my name is Richard Wilhelm, and I'd like to comment on the nepotism and political diversity policy you're considering. I worked for the County Election Commission as a volunteer poll worker for over 20 years. I've witnessed the tremendous improvements in the election process presided over by your predecessors. And I'd like to say up front, you have a unique workforce that you oversee. We're all volunteers. If we don't like something that was going on or we see happening, we just quit. Okay. I worked in most of the various volunteer poll worker positions, and in recent years I've worked as an election judge during the 2 weeks of early voting and on election day. I've worked at half of the 12 early voting sites and served as election judge at the 2 newest sites that were open this last year. I've worked at several of the 137 election day sites. Most of these years, my wife has worked for me in various poll worker positions. This is my wife, Deborah Wilhelm. I can depend on her to help accomplish whatever needs to be done, as we are a team in most everything we do. When I first started working as a poll worker those many years ago, I truly thought it was a civic duty and a privilege to volunteer to serve my community. My mother had been a poll worker. I still feel it's a privilege. I think most of your poll workers feel this way. As a commissioner that has oversight over a volunteer workforce primarily, it escapes my imagination why you would feel that nepotism is an issue you need a special policy for. Why would you want to discourage or otherwise focus on a very small percentage of your volunteer workforce that includes some of the most faithful and devoted workers you have? Your volunteer workforce comes and goes with each election. Your full-time staff sees dozens of new, if not hundreds, faces each election. I hope you know how hard it is to recruit poll workers on a continuous basis. It's tough. I'm one of your biggest recruiters, and I have trouble convincing my fellow citizens that this is a good way to spend your day or days at a very modest amount of pay. I'm constantly trying to get my fellow citizens to volunteer for this work and find few that are willing. If this policy is a response to specific complaints, why would you just not have your full-time staff and election judges handle them? You hire them to solve problems, let them do their job. Your poll workers want to be team players and work in a harmonious work environment. In all of my 20 years of doing volunteer work, I've never even heard the word nepotism mentioned, ever. Regarding the political diversity policy, in all my years of poll working, I have never known or asked or needed to know what political party a fellow poll worker favored. I've never identified myself with a political party or discussed political issues with my fellow poll workers. Our job as poll workers is to uphold and enforce the laws and policies we are given and create a working environment that encourages voters to trust the election process. We don't even allow voters to wear or bring anything into the voting area that suggests or reflects political preferences. In my opinion, if you adopt a policy that requires some type of poll worker political party identity, you are potentially creating a work environment that would become untenable for many, if not most, of your volunteers. Why would anyone volunteer to work in an environment that is filled with negative feeling? To have such a policy may encourage people to abandon party affiliation and become independents. In some respects, choose sides. Both of these policies have unimaginable consequences. I hope you've considered that. Have you considered the workload on your full-time staff, because they're the ones that are going to have to implement these policies? More importantly, the morale of your volunteers. You may in fact find yourselves a commission with an election to hold and few workers to help you. As a volunteer poll worker, my personal solution to all this unnecessary effort is easy. Just quit. I think if you understood how hard it has become to recruit poll workers, keep capable volunteers, you would look at all your efforts in this light. If you're in search of election problems to solve, why not involve some of your poll workers, including me, to come to a meeting and share their concerns? Thank you for letting me share my opinion.
Thank you, I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, sir.
I think he was next. Or were you going to say something? I'm so sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. My name is Deborah Wilhelm. I'm Richard's wife.
Thank you.
As a volunteer poll worker, it is important to me to do my part to ensure that poll workers and voters alike have a positive experience that encourages them to vote and work with confidence in knowing that they are important. Each person is valued for being, not just for what they are doing. I smile and check to make sure their needs are met at our polling place. As a spouse working with my husband, it is doubly important to me to serve my husband in the same way. If he needs me to fill in a position because a worker is away or out for a reason, or if no one is available and he hasn't found someone to fill the position, I do it, no matter the position needed. If I see a need but no one is tending to it, I want to take care of it if I can as efficiently as possible. An example is when we ran out of clean stylists or wipes in an area, or if someone walks in wearing political garb. I know of no favored positions as all have been difficult to fill, because I get to watch him trying to do that. I am a disabled senior citizen. I am proud of my husband's efforts, and I do my best to support him. Knowing his standards is just as important as knowing my own, because we want the voting process to work, to support our friends, family, community, state, and U.S. government. It would be a totally disrespectful dismantling of teamwork for this commission to discourage or eliminate spouses volunteering together at the polls, not to mention that it could be harmful to the spirit of volunteerism as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sid Orton. I've been a poll worker for, like Richard, about 20 years. When I first applied, I was excited about being able to be a poll worker. I had always wanted to, but my job just would not let me be away. I worked a few years as a clerk or whatever was needed, and then I became a chief judge, and I've been a chief judge since then. When my wife retired, I asked her if she would join me working at the polls, and she said yes. She is now my assistant judge. If she goes away to someplace else, or stays home, that means I have to train, learn, teach a new person who may or may not be of my choice. That's not really something I want to do. Before I left the house tonight, she says if they enforce the nepotism rule, she's done. So that means then I do have to find someone. I'm kind of like Richard. I may be done. And as far as what Richard said and what Deborah said, amen, with many exclamation points. Please do not do this. Please do not do this. The people who work for you, it's easy for me to imagine what a horrible, burdensome task it's going to be to recruit people if you move them from areas where they live because of their political affiliation. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And this first word is perception. The very first word. I know no perception that has been negative about poll workers. Now there are a few people, of course there's a few people in every place who have complaints or whatever. Golly, I just don't think the public in Little Rock, Arkansas, Pulaski County have a perception that things are wrong about diversity, about political diversity, and about nepotism. They don't even know, and they don't care. They come to vote, and we don't vote. Please don't do this.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I agree with these two gentlemen. I'm really concerned about the first statement, just like he said, perception regarding the integrity. To me, that questions the integrity of all of the workers previously. As far as I know, just like this gentleman, I've never heard of anything. I haven't seen it in mine. Mine's the absentee. Now, I'm a short timer compared to them. I've only been there 10 years. But to me, you are questioning the integrity of these people and me and our staffs. We don't have a problem with nepotism. We don't have a problem with political diversity. I don't even know how you define that. As far as I know, nobody that works in absentee is registered Democrat or registered Republican. Now, I will share with you, we've had 2 people in 10 years discuss politics on the job. They're no longer here. And they won't be here as long as I'm here. Nepotism, just like they said, you're going to run off your best trained, long-lasting people. Please don't do that. It's your choice, I understand. Please don't do that, not to just us, but to the county of Pulaski County.
Thank you.
And that's who you owe to do the best job. It's not to us. It's all the people of Pulaski County. Now, I will ask you, do you personally know of some integrity irregularities? If you do, I'd like to hear about it. If you don't, then I ask you to scratch this whole thing.
Thank you.
Now, I understand the theory, but in reality, this will not work.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Cheryl Yaw. I'm a retired paralegal from the Social Security Administration for 25 years. I've been appointed to the Pulaski County Election Commission. This is going on my 14th year. I've been a chief judge since the fall of 2008. As you're aware, Layton Library is the only site in North Little Rock. Our last election and election day, we processed 14,500 people came through there. During that time period, I had 13 poll workers and I could have used 3 more. I mean, the line was down to the Hayes Center. It made the newspaper and everybody knew that. I had poll workers working themselves to death. Nobody complained. The library was proud of us. The public is proud of us for doing such a good job during a difficult time. My team is very experienced in handling different situations. They are all cross-trained. I have over 250 provisional ballots. Well, I'm the only one doing those. So I had to call on my workers to take them away from a position to help me because I had them lined up around the wall. We couldn't even social distance because of the provisional ballots. My team tells me that I'm a good leader. The library is proud of us. And like everyone else, this is the first time I've heard of any problem with nepotism. I believe that if it happens, it should be taken care of one-on-one. And as Mr. Orton said, you know, if I'm removed, this is my husband, Rick Dock, he works with me since 2013. He's a retired federal agent. If we are removed, most of my team members have indicated they will not continue to work for Pulaski County Commission. If you don't enjoy your work, you move on. We have a great history together, and I wish you'd consider your decision in ruling of this policy. Working the election is one of the ways for council to perform our civic duty is serve the public together. We work as a team. And just as a side note, I believe the poll workers average age is at least 65. And if a man is not working with his wife, usually they're not going to work together. We need to have men in the room for security issues since we cannot have security guards. At times, voters can be hostile and they can be talked down, but you never know how the situation is going to end. I had a voter throw some things at me, and my husband was there to back me up. And you can see he's no shrinking violet. He took care of the situation. We had nothing but words. There was no altercations at all. But I am 5 foot, he's 6'3", and nobody was going to run over me that day. And it was just ridiculous that the voter was so upset because he was waiting in line, it was taking too much time to do a provisional ballot. He threw his paperwork and said, "You're not fast enough and I'm not voting." And then he walked out without voting, as was the result of that. And I respectfully ask you to not enforce this policy because I think you have a solution and you're just looking for a problem. We don't have a problem in this situation at all, and why create one? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Rick Young. I work for my wife, other people. I've been working about 12 years in Lehman Library. My experience as a federal agent is I assess criminal laws and put people in jail that violate federal laws. I've read through this several times. Like he said there, the problem is the word perception. So my question to you, Ms. Starr, is this. How many documented incidents do you know of that have caused a problem, either through nepotism or political affiliation? I'm waiting on the answer.
I'll address everybody at one time.
Ma'am?
I'll address everyone at one time.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'll address everyone at one time.
okay. Are you aware of any other incidents in any of the counties in Arkansas with this problem?
I'll address everyone at one time.
Okay. So basically, my wife had to fire me and two of the people that are married because they work under the title of election clerks. So you're saying, if you have 10 people, 5 have to be Democrats and 5 have to be Republicans to work at a site. Is that what this policy not saying?
No. No, I'll address that in a second.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your time. And you probably don't remember me, but I'm the person that told you where to stand and sit with your husband when you came to Lehman Library last election. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I really do appreciate everyone coming speaking. It's very important, and I also want to thank you so much for all the work that you do. If you don't mind, I would like to address all the questions before I forget.
Would you all please speak up?
Is the mic not working?
No.
They don't amplify, they just
Okay.
record for the live
Okay,
stream.
sorry, I thought they amplified. I'll try to speak up louder. I don't have a very loud voice. I want to say how much I appreciate everything that you do. And this policy has nothing to do with anything that you're doing. This policy does not affect you directly. This policy has provisions in it, and Mr. Scott can correct me if I'm incorrect, because he's an attorney and I'm not. This policy has basically grandfather provisions and provisions for the county board to say, we vote to not apply this policy to these persons, okay? We saw during the coronavirus what can happen when we lose half or more of our poll workers, and we bring in new poll workers. We've seen with recent legislation with volunteer poll workers, we keep hearing the word volunteer poll workers, but in effect, you're actually not volunteer poll workers under the law, you're actually paid employees. And under the law, under almost every county, state, local, city, municipality, there are nepotism laws, and that's very common. So almost every single state has this law that you can't be related to one another if you're supervising one another. We're like one of the only states in the entire country that doesn't have it. And we're seeing more and more people having to come in for poll workers. And to me, it was a good time to maybe address that issue for those coming in. Not addressing those that are currently here, because that's why there's a provision in here that says we can vote to not apply that. So it's just simply providing for those that are coming in to keep it clean, because the county has a nepotism rule. Pulaski County does for employees. The state of Arkansas has one. The federal government has one. Everybody has one. But we're not applying it. We're not putting those same standards for our poll workers. And to me, that seemed kind of odd. So this has nothing to do with anything that anyone's done anything wrong at all. I don't want you to think that. It was just as we're going forward, as we're seeing more and more people come in, as our poll worker numbers sadly diminish as we saw in COVID, and we have more people coming through recruiting, it was just applying a new standard that we're applying in every other state but Arkansas, and just getting with the times. I really don't want to take that personally, because it's not that at all. It's just being consistent with other states. And because we do have those kind of same applications in other states. So again, that's why it was written in this way. I guess I should have maybe put it in, that's why I had to everybody else look at it and say, what did I forget or leave out? I mean, I don't mind putting in a grandfather clause and saying, everybody now, this doesn't apply to you. But to me, it's about, as we're bringing more people in, to not carry that forward, because we do need to be consistent, with how we do everything else in this state. But I completely understand what we have here and how it's been working. And I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's working very well. And I do appreciate that. So I don't want you to think there's any kind of ill intent here. It's just trying to keep things consistent and fair. As we're bringing new people in, especially with these new volunteer programs that was passed with the students, we want to make sure we kind of keep that separated as well. So I want to make sure the intent is understood. Yes, sir.
Anyone who reviewed Arkansas laws, I cannot find a Arkansas recently with the recent legislative changes they made to voting. There's no Arkansas law that says anything about nepotism from voting.
There's nothing regarding nepotism in voting.
Right.
Not in voting. I'm talking about there's nepotism in government and counties regarding employment. I'm talking about employment laws, yes.
But you're making a policy as an election commissioner.
I'm not following. I'm sorry.
Okay. This is a policy change.
Correct.
It's a new policy.
Correct.
You created this
Correct.
based on a perception of something.
No.
Yes, well, that's what this says.
First sentence says that.
Perception, very first word.
First sentence questions the integrity.
Did someone else write this, ma'am, or did you write it?
No, I wrote this.
Okay. All you have to do is put one sentence in somewhere. As effective date of this date, any new hires as election poll workers will have to follow this policy on nepotism and political diversity.
And I'll be more than happy to do it that way. I'm sorry. I'm a fluffy writer sometimes. It's not meant to be harmful. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I think your policy could be written in one sentence
Okay.
and just,
I just want to know what kind of policy can be written in one sentence, because it sounds amazing.
I'm getting ready to tell you, direct your staff to be aware of nepotism issues and to take corrective action as necessary. That's the policy. You have a unique workforce. These other agencies you're talking about, you may refer to me as an employee. I don't refer to myself as an employee. I refer to myself as a volunteer. Now, maybe with semantics and words, but just direct your staff to be aware of the possibility of nepotism issues and take corrective action as appropriate. That takes care of it.
And have them fill out a report, you can send it to you within 24 hours.
It's real easy just to, that's why you hire these people.
That's a different.
And I
That's a
agree with what you're saying.
different.
Y'all are making work for yourselves over and above what, all the responsibility that you have, when currently the election staff sends me a letter and says, choose your workers. they're not even assigning the workers. The chief judges, and I hope I'm not getting you in trouble, Sean, the chief judges select their people. I don't know whether, getting away briefly from nepotism, I don't know whether they're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent, or whatever, and I don't care. When we get in that room, we're working. All that other stuff doesn't matter. There are areas in town where there's a majority of one party. There's another area in town where there's a majority of a different party. If you're going to take from people over here and send them over here and vice versa, you're really going to have some personnel problems.
And again, this does not do that.
Yes, that's exactly what it says.
This does not do that. Thank you so
It
much.
needs to be rewritten. Now, just like this young lady back over said, you're creating a problem you don't have right now. Now, if you have a problem, it's like this gentleman said, would you please share it with us so we'll understand the problem? Now, if you're talking about future, look at 10, 20 years down the road. You're telling us that you don't want this couple working together in a polling place, you don't want this couple working together in a polling place, and you don't want this couple. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
No.
Well, that's what this says. In the future, you're not going to allow that. That's exactly what that says.
No, this does not say that. This
Well-
gives us the ability to keep our current structure in place to allow for what we've seen right now, which is the change. And I'll apologize for the way this is written, but as a former HR director and someone who deals with policy, I take a different type of approach than maybe y'all would prefer. But I look at things as always creating an exception to a rule, where I could have just written in a grandfather clause, which would probably, and I don't mind doing that. I don't mind changing it and just creating a grandfather clause. I'm not a fan of the grandfather clauses. But a grandfather clause is simply just, would you rather explain it, because you're the attorney and you probably can explain it better than
I think
me.
we all understand what a grandfather clause is.
I mean, basically saying that everything that's current stays the same and it doesn't apply to everyone here.
That wasn't my comment. I said in 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, new people coming in.
Yes, it would apply to them.
You're telling us that in 10 to 20 years, a couple capable, just like this couple is, that are new, you're not going to let them work together. This couple, you're not going to let them work together. This couple, you're not going to let them work together according to that policy, because they're new. I don't think you really want to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a couple of things I want to say. One, nepotism, when you look up the definition, it's not just about family
No.
members working together. It's about favoritism shown regarding a position
Correct.
or an office.
Correct.
And that doesn't apply in this situation, because all of these jobs stink, really, when you get down to it, because the hours are long on election day.
Correct.
And you put up with a lot of stuff from people, and you have to smile and put up with it, and still get the job done. And so it doesn't relate in that way. And the other issue, I think, is what we were trying to say is that couples that work together, they're a team. We want to work with all of our people that we're working with as a team. And they understand that. We tell them that. We have worked with some of the same people over and over through the years. And so it's gotten to be like that. But that takes a long time to develop, just like it takes a long time to develop a relationship as spouses.
Yes.
But those relationships are the most positive you can have in a working situation where you're serving the community, I would think. Does that make sense?
I don't. 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 I'm trying to choose my words very carefully because I don't think it applies to anybody in this room, anyone that's a Pulaski County poll worker. But I do think that we're applying a generation, a culture to this generation that's not necessarily the same to my daughter's generation. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be applicable to her or even a generation ahead of her. And here's how other states look at nepotism. Now, I looked at a very large study on this issue because I was looking at all 50 states. I don't look at Arkansas and just stop there. I looked at all 50 states and what the laws are. And it was a huge study. It was a study by actually a Democratic study that was done at New Mexico. I have to pull up her, I have to find her name and get it back to you. But they looked at this issue, and it was an issue out of the East Coast, actually. They looked at it, and it was in California and some other states over there. But the issues that they saw with the nepotism issue wasn't about favoritism. It was about people not calling each other out when they were related.
Was this poll worker?
That was the issue. And so, and this was in the East, I'm sorry, I didn't say East Coast, the West Coast. So this was not an issue of favoritism. It was an issue of some problems that had arisen and somebody not wanting to say, hey, this is something that you can't do, or this is something you did wrong because of who it was. So it was a different type of issue, and they've seen this a lot too in the workplace because, if it's someone's daughter or someone's sister or aunt or whatever, you're less likely to say something because of the relative issue, that person being related. And so this is why a lot of states have adopted these types of policies to prevent that.
Were these poll workers men?
Yes, yes.
That you're referring
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
study poll workers?
They were studying poll workers. So this is, I think, one of the reasons those laws started coming about. And they've been around for a long time in these other states. So this is, again, because the generations are changing, we don't have these long-term. Unfortunately, people aren't married it's sad, but they're not these long relationships that we just don't see that anymore. And so it's hard for me, as much as I would love to apply what I would think is the right and how people are in these long relationships that are around forever. I have to look at my daughter's age group and what it's going to be like for them. So I guess I'm trying to be forward thinking here.
So it's not an issue that exists yet?
No, it is an issue that exists yet. It's just, as we saw with COVID, we saw a 50%, more than a 50% decline in our poll worker numbers. We had to recruit, we were down to 340 poll workers. So now all of a sudden, we don't know our poll workers that were coming in. They're not the people that you know. They're not anybody that we know. So would it be smart just go ahead and bring people in that we don't know, who are maybe married to each other, that we don't know those relationships and how they work together? They could be a very different type of situation in those. So it's just, why start there when you could start fresh? I guess it was my view. When we could start with a better and different way that's more consistent with how it is in all other aspects of what we do in society, and that's not having people related to each other when they're supervising one another.
I'm glad.
Going forward.
I'm glad you used the word related. Related, me and my wife, is not like related today.
That's what she said.
And this is going to apply to that. How are you going to know whether they're in the same household or living together or living separate and having a relationship? There's no way for you to know that. And if they're aware of the policy and they want to work, they're sure not going to tell you.
That's very true. And you have a point.
You mentioned a fresh start. We're not starting fresh. You said we've already got 340 workers. What's wrong with that? Let's continue, not start fresh. Continue from here on. and every other state around here has got it, that doesn't mean it's good for Pulaski County. We're different. Do you expect to see people like this in downtown Memphis, downtown St. Louis, Tulsa, Oklahoma City? There's probably not very many of them.
The only way you're gonna enforce your application for poll worker, put a 1001 violation on there for line misdemeanor.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
You said they're not gonna put the right address that they did together. The only way you're gonna enforce your application is put a 1001 violation on there as a misdemeanor if they give false information that found out later that they lived together. Name, address. Otherwise,
As part of the application, is that what you're saying?
put 1001 before they sign the bottom line, like the feds do. That if you lie on this application and it comes to be a problem that you live with someone else and one's supervising the other, then you have reason to, now, the Pulaski County attorney is not going to charge anybody on a false application, but you can immediately terminate them and ban them from ever working for Pulaski County as a poll worker again.
It's not the purpose of this policy. It's not to discipline or do anything to the poor. This is about us making sure that we're doing right by the Pulaski County voters by setting a standard going forward.
Okay, I got one question. You're
Yes.
here for 2 years, maybe. What happened when they put another commissioner in and they undo the policy?
Then they undo the policy.
What you said about grandfather and writing it in.
Yes, sir.
That kind of satisfies me as far as nepotism is concerned. I'm still very concerned about party affiliation requirements. If it's a primary, because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are doing those voting, and I can see why you wanted to do that.
Mhm.
The general election is a general election, not operated by the parties at all. Parties should not matter at all on a general election, a school election, a city election, where the judge election,
Nonpartisan elections.
any nonpartisan election. Now, of course, the general election is partisan, but it's not operated by the parties.
Right.
And again, I'm thinking, it says something about close to areas, but there's a problem getting people to go away from their neighborhood. Most of my poll workers live in my precinct or a voting precinct. That's where they want to work.
Absolutely.
And, out of my 8, you're going to tell 4, possibly, that they need to go someplace else. That's going to be damaging. I'm not concerned about the policy. I'm concerned about Sean and the voters. You're sending them to an area. I hate to say this, but that's just the way I feel. You're sending workers to an area where they might not be appreciated, and vice versa.
So I think the way that,
And I can tell you, in my voting experiences, I've been in places where I did not feel comfortable at all. And the voters let me know that I shouldn't be comfortable there, and I was just there to do a job. And I did my best to ignore it, but I could feel it.
I appreciate you bringing that up because, and so the law currently allows for that political diversity. We're not very good at practicing it. So one thing we had talked about, and we need to change that anyway in this policy, so I'm glad you brought it up, is creating something called floaters, which is something that Commissioner Price brought up the other day. And what that would do is, and I'll rewrite this portion along with the grandfathering portion as well, is a floater would be volunteers who would volunteer to go to, if they wanted to go to other sites to, when you have that kind of it's not balanced at all, to create a little bit of balancing in some other sites where it's very heavy.
Good luck with that.
if they choose to do so. That's simply a volunteer.
Cross-training.
It is cross-training is what it is. It does help to know other sites as well, because in those, especially during COVID, when you have these issues where, what would happen if we had an entire site that was called out because of COVID, right? We would have had to have an entire, poll workers come from other areas to come in. So it's not a bad thing to have that. So I will definitely completely strike that out and rewrite that into a floater type of language.
May I add something, Chairwoman Starr? So to Chairwoman Starr's point, at our last meeting, I had talked about the possibility, like she said, of recruiting poll workers with them knowing specifically from the beginning that you were going to be a floater, that you will move around the county. Because yes, COVID's gone for now, but we don't know if it'll come back, we don't know if something else will come along. And even during the election, ma'am, like you said, you needed 3 more workers at Lehman Library. There were places where I went to a location and we needed 2 more poll workers. So I could, call up Sean or Brian and say, hey, we need 2 more poll workers at this location. And luckily, some of the newer poll workers that we had just trained were younger folks, and they were comfortable with just kind of going wherever they needed. They were brand new, and they said, oh, you need a couple extra hands at this location, I have no problem going there. So that's kind of what sparked the idea in me, that if we bring in folks, if we recruit them with them knowing that they're going to kind of float around to different parts of the county, then that expectation is set from the beginning. And then we can use them as floaters, we can use them to help at different locations. If folks call in sick at one location, they can come in. Just like in the medical field, my mom's a nurse, they had floater nurses, that would work whatever shifts wherever they're needed. So to your point, sir, about, maybe from this date starting forward, we can start recruiting those floaters, letting them know that that's what that position is going to be as far as your responsibilities and expectations.
Okay.
Instead of moving around people that are already there.
And I understand what you're saying, but are you still going to allow the chief judges to recruit their own people?
Yes.
Without asking political questions? And I think, this is just me, I have a party on my ID, it's coming off tomorrow. My wife's party's coming off tomorrow. I'm going to be independent because I don't want to be told that I have to go someplace because of the party that I represent.
Independent's a party.
Do what? Independent is a party, but,
Optional. You gotta go optional.
well, whatever.
Here's
But
what I'm gonna,
I-
can I ask you, here's what I'm gonna suggest, okay?
Beg pardon?
Here's what I'm gonna suggest. I'm gonna table the policy, okay?
Thank you.
I'm gonna completely gut it and change it. Put in a grandfather clause of going forward on just the relationship to supervision, and then take out the political diversity and talk about floaters regarding different, and for cross-training too. And have Sean send it to the poll workers for review, to you first, okay? Let y'all look at it, give me some feedback, give us some feedback, and then we'll look at it. How is that?
Thank you.
Does that sound good?
That's progress.
Okay,
That sounds good.
great. And we appreciate that. We may have some other things that we're gonna wanna float by you, because we would like your input.
At one time, Brian had talked to me about I don't think it's called chief judge, about a council of poll workers and I would like to see that instigated, whether I sit on it or not, but you've got really good poll workers and you know it. Take 10, 7, whatever number you want, and let's talk and say, we've got this problem. I didn't get enough poll workers. Sean, why don't I have enough poll workers? And lay it out there. And know where our problems are and how we can
That would be,
solve.
that would be
That's
excellent.
just,
I like that idea, sir.
He talked to me about it, and unfortunately, it just never never happened.
But to your point, sir, I live in Maumelle, and I've got poll workers that are just old, have been there 10 years, and I was always calling them up, asking them for advice, because they knew everything that could possibly happen, and they gave me a lot of advice during the last election. So I definitely agree with you that we should be, and like you said, we come in every 2 years, and we may move in and out, but we should be able to utilize that experience of the poll
But you
workers.
just, you know, and you mentioned Maumelle, and my suggestion would be to take a chief judge, and, well, we got 9 early voting places, or 12 now?
12 now.
But take 7 or 9, an odd number, in case somebody wanted to vote, and have a council, and they don't necessarily have to be a chief judge, but somebody with experience that can have a conversation and say, this is what we recommend you do. Go
Like an
to
advisory
the-
council.
Go to the commission and say, please.
That sense.
I like
We
that
could,
idea.
we could have a topic at each meeting. I mean, something that you guys suggest. I mean, would that be helpful? I mean, what do you think? How would be the best approach to that? To get some of these issues out in the open as well.
Well, sometimes, yeah, I'm speaking for myself. These are all younger than I am. I'm speaking for myself. I don't necessarily like to get out at night. I will for something important. This is important. If you're going to discuss something and you really want advice, not just someone to stand up and talk, if you really want advice, have Sean call and invite us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And normally, and we're waiting on a decision, but we're waiting for the buildings to open up so that we can have people here. And once that happens, because this is the only public meeting we've been able to have, then we can have you guys here and we can have these types of discussions at 5 p.m. and not, at 7:30 p.m.
And that is another issue. A lot of your poll workers are older people, and a lot of them don't like to drive at night.
Yeah.
Especially women, and if they're alone,
Right.
But
And we could always meet on a Saturday morning or something else that would be more convenient, so that you guys could attend.
And that was the problem with my wife. If we couldn't work together, she would have to go someplace else. Polls closed 7:30 at night in the fall or winter time. It's dark.
Mhm.
She's got to walk out by herself and get in her car and drive home.
We're not gonna do that to you.
I ain't doing it.
That's also a concern that was brought up to me by several poll workers.
That was never going to be
I
a,
was, before the election, I hate to admit this, but it's true. I was frightened. Where I worked and with the atmosphere that was going on, the political, I asked the place where I was working if there was an escape door. And if there was a door in between that could be locked. And I was prepared to take my workers out that door and lock the door behind us and get the heck out of there. Fortunately, nothing happened. But it was a scary, scary time. Besides everything else that was going on.
Have any of you three actually worked, not visited a polling place, actually worked at a polling place?
I've worked early voting for 17 elections.
Okay. How about absentee?
No. Yes, yes.
You have?
Yes. I used to run the other side,
Used to run?
on the county side.
Where?
On the county side. I used to be the voter registration supervisor for the county.
Is that the same thing as qualifying absentee votes?
No, we did not canvass.
Okay.
No, we did not canvass. Mm-mm. Nope.
Well, the state offers some courses for commission members. Anybody that wants to learn about elections, the state offers some courses. The county has to give orientation to all of its workers.
I've already been through all the training.
I'm sorry?
I've been through poll worker training. I've also trained others, but yes. And then now that COVID's over, we can do that again. But there's actually, that training is going to be changing. So there's a law that came out that go into effect on July 27th that's going to change the training requirements. And it's going to require skills testing. And if you don't pass that skill, you're not going to get your certification. That's for all of us up here, which I think is a great thing. So
You just cut your workforce in half.
that's not for y'all.
Oh. Well,
That's for us.
For the commission.
That's for us.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's on the new application that's online, it says you may take a test, or you will take a test after your training for the poll worker application.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have to take a test, you're not gonna get them to training.
That-
Most people.
There's no change in the law regarding the poll worker training. This is specifically for commissioners.
I have a copy of the application. The last thing is, I understand that I must pass a written test over election procedures after training to be appointed.
Sean?
And I just got that off the website today.
Yeah, I mean, so that was the poll worker application that was approved by the last commission.
Nobody's ever taken a test before.
I'm unaware of a test for the poll workers.
But you're gonna lose 40% of your workers if you make them take a test.
We haven't approved a test.
Okay.
I'm
The
unaware of a
rest of it is
test.
great, it's just that last.
Yeah, it's like we haven't approved a test or created a test, so.
You wanna see
I'm
it?
referring to yes, sir. I'm referring to the test that commissioners have to take on skills that for certification, so our requirements have changed, which is a good thing for us. Thank you, sir.
If it's on the application, I would recommend that you all have a motion to remove it.
You can have that copy, I just printed it off.
Thank you, ma'am.
Today. And that is a brand new application, that's not anything prior to what we filled out before.
Thank you, Sean, the effective date is July 1 of laws. July something.
Yeah, because there's the Pulaski County qualifications and the state of Arkansas qualifications, which are different. And obviously, we can't change the state. I understand that I must pass a written test over election procedures after training to be appointed. Very last line.
I would move that we put that on our agenda.
Yeah, we're gonna add that to the next agenda item. Sean, please.
Because I wasn't aware of any
Because I'm
written
gonna,
test.
and we're gonna need to look at that poll worker training book to see where that came up. The poll worker training to see where this is coming from. This test.
We don't currently administer tests, but it was put on the application. That was the application that was approved by the last commission.
Let's put this on the agenda because we're gonna change this application. I also have a problem with I can lift 30 pounds.
Well, that's where people move boxes last year.
I know, but what if you,
No, it's some of the site location too, like Lincoln Library. Time you get everything put in, the dates and everything, you can be over 30 pounds.
Yeah, let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting, please. Thank you for bringing this.
No problem.
Please, please, as a commission, I beg you, I plead with you. Two of you were on the previous commission. You don't remember approving that statement. Please don't do anything like that ever again. That you don't remember doing it.
I'm not sure when that was added, to be honest.
I don't either.
Sean, do we know when that was
That
added?
even makes it.
How long
worse.
that's been on there? Was that on previous iterations of that application? 'Cause I don't remember adding or striking anything from that list.
I don't remember anything being added or struck from what was given to the commission to approve. There were some stylistic changes made to it. I don't have the exact date when it was done. I could look back, but I'm fairly certain it was done by the last commission. When exactly, I'm not sure, but that is the most current application that we've been using for, a year and a half at least.
Okay. So we don't know when that sentence was
No,
added?
because it has no date. I do not recall any changes to any application.
All right, so we're gonna take a good look at this application.
No, well, one of the requirements that I've made since becoming the chair is that we put dates on everything. They have to have dates that they were created and dates that they were changed. So if there was a review date, approved date, effective date, and there's no date on this, I have no idea when this was implemented.
You leave it all at first.
Exactly. It drives me insane. So,
Well, we didn't think it sounded right when she saw it, and I looked at it, and I
Yeah.
said, well, we at least tell them.
yeah, that doesn't sound right to me either. So we will review this. It will have dates on it going forward, just like our meeting minutes now have dates going, because those do not have dates either. And
When you say the date, that's when the commission approved it.
so there should be two dates on everything. So there should be a date for the original date when it was created. And anytime something is amended or even if it's reviewed and not amended, you still need to have maybe 3 dates. There's the original date when it was created, the date that it was reviewed, and then a third date if it was amended. And everything we do we don't put dates on anything. And so one of the things I said implemented recently is we will be dating everything. We need to have a way of knowing when this went into effect, the last version of it. Version 7, version 12. So we need to keep our versions up to date, and that's something that we've just started reviewing, and then as well as our templates. So it's a process, but we are getting there. And we've also not been here over the past year, so we're getting all this stuff to us, and we're getting it changed, and we're also getting a new website, so that's going to help. Having the right forms. So thank you. Okay, so table that. I'm gonna get that to you. Let you guys make the changes and recommendations and get it back to us. Then we'll make them and send it back to you again. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can you let us know when you're going to bring the finalized to the commission? I don't know how you could tell us.
Sean, I'll get that information to you.
Yeah, however you want the process to work,
Yeah.
we'll make sure.
We will make sure to
We'll make
notify.
sure to notify you.
Communication is very important to all of us.
Well, I think
Transparency is very important.
all 4 families would like to be represented.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that, yes, you will absolutely be notified. And we welcome you, and hopefully the building will open up here very soon, and you can attend our meetings, and we can have more discussions, because I think it's very helpful.
I appreciate your saying that we want your advice, but if you're covering something, I ask you to get the staff, contact people that Sean thinks you think would be qualified to comment on. Otherwise, I would think I had to come to every meeting.
Absolutely.
Because the agenda is not anywhere on the website, so I can't look at it prior to the meeting.
You can get on the email and then you just mail to you.
Okay.
Yeah, the agenda should be on the website, on the front page.
When Richard was telling me about the meeting, he told me that I could go to the website and get this information. I went to Pulaski County Election Commission.
And it wasn't on there?
I went all over it, never found anything.
Okay.
But now, what were you saying that,
There's a site when you go to votepulaski.net, if you want to know the emails that are going on, you can sign up for every email that shows their meetings and everything.
go to Pulaski.net
Yeah.
and sign up for
Subscribe.
Emails.
It says subscribe to
Thank you
the
very
email.
much.
But I promise you, when we get this new website, it's going to be much easier to find this information. It's not going to be so difficult to get this
On the
information.
website, you have to understand, staff, commission, please must understand, a lot of your folks are older. We're not computer literate like you young people. We don't, now I'm not speaking for these, I don't understand internet. I get emails, but I don't understand how to find stuff like they found.
If you sign up for the emails, there's a site that you just hit and you can watch it from home.
And that's something else that, you know, we will do. Well, there'll be a lot of education and communication things going out. I like to create, I was about to say infographics, but a one-pager of how to find things when you're on an internet site, of like, you know, to get to something. And I think it's very helpful to do that. And we will definitely do that for the public on how to locate certain items or information. And we will do that for the internet when it becomes available. One-pagers or just, you know, directions with screenshots and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 of how to get there, because I think it's helpful, especially when things have changed, of how to find information. You know, we will make sure that's part of all the communications plan on finding that information on the internet.
In order to test that, get some older folks.
Yes, sir. We plan on making the new website very user-friendly, very easy to navigate. The current one is not. And I'm an internet person, and I can really find stuff on that.
That's easy for young folks to say, it's easy to navigate.
No, well, this one, I know that ours is not. I agree with you. It's not easy to
I'm
navigate.
talking about any internet site. Not all of them, that you young folks would say it's easy to navigate.
Well, I will say one example that I was talking to Jody about. You go to this, it's another election commission, another state, and it says, I want to, and then underneath, you can pick, I want to sign up for e-news, I want to see the agenda of the next meeting, I want to, it's really, really simple. It gives you choices, basically. You just read it and pick which choice you want, and it takes you straight to that site. So we're working on something like that that's a little bit more intuitive, that anybody can get on there and find what they're looking for. And we will run it past y'all. You could be our focus group.
You can be our focus group. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move to the election, back to the election, if everyone's good right now. Because we have our unofficial results for the Jacksonville North Pulaski. Commissioner Price, would you like to read our unofficial results?
Yes, so the unofficial results for the...
Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you all for coming. For the May 18, 2021 Jacksonville North Pulaski School District Annual School Election, registered voters total 21,000, I'm sorry, hold on, I'm sure I got the right number. 21,352, ballots cast 354, one blank ballot cast, voter turnout 1.66%. For School Board Zone 4, Laura Walker got 206 votes for 90.35% of the vote. Teresa McClendon got 22 votes for 9.65% of the vote. For the 48.3 millage or mill school tax millage, for the millage, 231 votes, which is 66.19%. Against the tax millage, 118 votes, or 33.81%, and there were 5 undervotes.
Okay. Do I need a motion, Sean, for the unofficial?
If you would, and then if you all would sign one copy, I'll post it.
Do I have a motion?
So I move to approve the unofficial election results in the May 18, 2021 Jacksonville North Pulaski School District Annual School Election.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairwoman, I would note that there are no provisional ballots that I'm aware of at this time. If I could just go and check with staff to make sure
Yes.
they came from the field.
No provisionals, wow. That's a big change
I like that one.
from the last election.
66%.
Thank you. Okay.
So there are no provisional ballots.
Okay. So, well, I'll get to that in just a second, I guess. So nothing else from the election.
Correct.
Okay. So quickly moving on, discussion of equipment deployment and retrieval is our next topic.
Yeah, that was discussed at the last meeting that you wanted that on the agenda.
I actually would like to move that to the next
Sure.
meeting. If you'll add that to the next.
Sure.
Discussion redistricting was simply just a notation that while the population numbers came out for the state, the population numbers have not come out at the micro level
So for the counties and
for the
cities.
counties. So I'm getting lots of questions from people of when are you going to give us information? So, and I'm sure you are too. So again, from my understanding, it's not going to be till late August.
I was hearing possibly September.
Yeah.
So.
Like if we're lucky, late
Likely
August is when those numbers will be coming to us.
And the website says September 30th, I looked at it today.
September 30th.
Yeah.
I'm still going to cross my fingers for late August. But yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be the end of September, which is really complicating a lot of issues that we're going to have to think about. So that was the only discussion redistricting, because I know there's a lot of questions about that data that came out, and does it affect anything that we're doing? And it does not at this time, because we don't have that aggregate data. The next is discussion of website updates. It really was a discussion of website updates. I just had a comment because I was a little concerned about our vendor.
Okay.
I want us to verify that our vendor is in good standing, because from my understanding, our vendor is not registered in the state.
Not registered, as a business? Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure that's easy to find out, because we have, signed contracts that the county, I know, has engaged in for it, since prior to me being here, so surely
Okay, because
there's something, but I don't know.
I did my own research and it showed a forfeited business. So if we could get that clarified before we go forward with the
Absolutely.
website, because I don't want us to be in a pickle.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And you were going to send us a website, Jody, for us to look at.
Yes, and I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to public comment, Sean, is there a meeting that we get to cancel now?
Okay, so what the commission has talked about was a meeting on May 21st at 5 p.m. That meeting was specifically to do a preliminary review of provisional ballots. Since there are no provisional ballots, there's no need for that meeting. It has not been advertised. It's just simply a discussion from the commission. We do need to meet still on May 28th. to certify the election. However, that agenda could be amended to eliminate the provisional ballot hearing since there are no provisional ballots. So that meeting could be just for certification or whatever else you want on the agenda, but there's no need for a provisional ballot hearing since there are no provisional ballots.
We're having that meeting at 12:15, so it's a lunch meeting, so.
I was hoping we could do it at 12, because it's gonna be really, really fast.
12?
Can we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we?
For sure.
Okay.
No problem with that.
All right. So we don't need to meet on the 21st. And we do have a lot of UACOPAs outstanding. What if they come in late that day?
Okay, so the process would be, anything that comes in before the meeting would be tabulated, if, it would be canvassed, and then anything that was accepted would be tabulated, anything there's questions about would come to the commission for you all to review, and then we would do a final tabulation after you all had had a chance to review any of those that had come in that were questionable. If you certify the official results and another ballot comes in by the deadline, which is 5 p.m. that day, you could amend your certification. Again, this is a school election, so we don't do election night reporting to the state on this. You could amend your certification. I will just note, it is highly unlikely that something is going to come in. So the clerk's office does 2 mail runs a day, one at 10, one at 2, 3 o'clock. If it's not there by 10 in the morning, it's highly unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely that it's going to come in after that.
Okay.
So again, the timing of the meeting, to absolutely catch everything, you would meet after 5. I highly doubt that something's going to come in after the 12 noon.
Okay. Okay. And then we'll need to, we're gonna have to meet sometime in June to do some of these other topics, but we'll set a meeting at another time. Okay. All right.
Can I ask just Commissioner Stark,
Yes.
Chairwoman Stark, did you want to put these things like review the application and stuff onto that certification meeting, or do you want to push those into June?
Push those into June.
Okay.
Mhm. Because that certification meeting has to be quick. It's at
Sure.
lunchtime.
Right. And I think you're going on a trip, right? Yeah. I'm gonna drag around on that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick
Yes.
question? Just because I missed it. So we are not meeting this Friday, since there's no.
No, we are
Correct.
not meeting this Friday. So happy Friday afternoon. No provisionals. Did you have any, we'll go to public comment and then we'll go to the next. That's why I did the announcement, so then we could do that. Okay. Do we have any public comment? Yes, sir.
For the several of us that you allowed to comment, I want to thank you for being open to that.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for considering inviting us to specific meetings. If you're going to cover something that you think we would be interested in.
No, we appreciate it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome, sir.
That's what I was gonna say. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, no, thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much for, and sticking around. I appreciate it.
Have a blessed afternoon, everybody.
Thank you,
You
you
too.
too. Drive safe. Any other public comment? You're staring at me.
Jody, any public comments on
That's
the?
your Bailey's public comment. What is past your bedtime?
Let me double check the Facebook. And, no, there is nothing on the comments.
Okay. Anybody else? Any announcements, Sean?
None.
I have an announcement,
Yes, sir.
if I may. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, I have taken a new job opportunity that will not allow me to continue to serve as election commissioner. So I will be resigning from this position effective May 31st. The Pulaski County Democratic Party will hold a new election on May 24th, so then that new commissioner will be joining y'all in June. But I just have to say, it's been an honor and pleasure serving in this role. It's been an honor and pleasure working with both of you. not too long with you, Commissioner Scott, but Chairwoman Starr, with you this past election cycle. And I know you guys are going to do a great job, and I hope to see you around.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's a very, well, there's not even a time for it going to May. Like, that's really quick.
Well, the decision happened fairly recently, so yeah. And we haven't had a meeting this month yet, so I haven't been able to be here to say anything about it.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
That's quick. Okay. Any other announcement? I don't think anyone can do an announcement that's bigger than that, so. Okay, so just a reminder, we meet on May 28th at 12 p.m. And let's make sure we get that out on social media channels. And that's the certification meeting, and we have a lot of outstanding UOCAVITs. Again, that's military and our overseas. And thank you everyone for sticking around. I know it's late and we do appreciate it. And thank you so much for getting out to the poll workers and everybody. And we are adjourned.